Opening scene, a softly glowing oil lamp flickers as the camera pans over an ancient, dust-covered music box. Voiceover. Have you ever hummed a tune, so familiar yet untraceable, wondering if it was passed down through generations? Or was it whispered from the great beyond? Tonight, we explore the chilling origins of the haunting lullaby. Music intensifies subtly, blending a haunting melody with faint whispers. The year is 1874, and deep within the misty marshlands of Ireland, there existed a small, isolated village named Clayborough. Known for its striking beauty and peculiar silence, Clayborough harbored secrets darker than its fog-filled nights. At the heart of these secrets was a mysterious lullaby. Soft piano keys play the eerie lullaby in the background. Mothers sang it, children hummed it, yet no one seemed to understand its origin. When asked, villagers would just say, "It's always been here." But there was one rule: never sing the lullaby after sundown. Strange? Indeed. But skeletons are locked behind every closed door, and Clayborough was no exception. Transition to an illustration of an old manor, overgrown and blanketed in shadow. The tale begins with the Fallon family, a lineage of noblemen who once ruled Clayborough. Their youngest daughter, Eleanor, was known for her enchanting voice. When Eleanor sang, the village would pause, birds would stop chirping, the brook would hush, and even the winds seemed to gather to listen. Sound effect: distant, soulful singing, barely audible. But tragedy struck on the night of her 11th birthday. A joyous celebration turned into a mourning ceremony. Eleanor vanished without a trace. Her voice was lost, but strangely, her lullaby lingered. The villagers claimed they could hear Eleanor's voice on moonlit nights, her tune carried by the wind. Hopeful it would guide her home, they began to hum it in her honor, but only during daylight. Music becomes eerie, drawing in suspense. It worked, and it didn't. Weeks turned into months, but Eleanor never returned. What did change, however, was the lullaby itself. The melody deepened, its tone haunting. Those who hummed it after dusk described unease. They reported hearing faint voice harmonies trailing theirs, too close to coincidence. And that's when the disappearances began. Visual, shadows creeping along the walls of empty rooms. First, it was the shepherd boy, Aidan. His sheep returned home from the meadow, but Aidan did not. Next, Mrs. Callahan, one of the village's oldest residents, was last seen pulling back her curtains before sundown. Villagers found neither their bodies nor answers. Instead, they found an old music box near where Aidan grazed his sheep, an object eerily etched with Eleanor's initials, EF. Music box sound effect, soft, off-key melody. Rumors spiraled out of control. Could Eleanor's disappearance have somehow mingled her soul with the lullaby and was humming it beyond curfew, summoning her spirit, angry and vengeful for being forgotten? Questions piled higher than answers. Cut to slow zoom on an attic, with the light falling over a dust-covered music box. It wasn't until an outsider, anthropologist Dr. Margaret Lyle, arrived decades later that the lullaby's sinister history unraveled further. Dr. Lyle was fascinated by the song locals refused to sing after the sun dipped below the horizon. Determined to trace its origin, she integrated into the community. Sneaking past the watchful eyes of neighbors, she recorded herself singing the lullaby late at night. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary at first, but upon playback, Dr. Lyle discovered she wasn't singing alone. Behind her voice were whispers, soft but clear. One phrase echoed throughout the recording: "Find me." Terrified, but equally intrigued, Dr. Lyle started digging into Clayborough's archives. Among baptismal records, tattered letters, and ancient journals, she stumbled upon an account written by a maid in the Fallon house, years after Eleanor had vanished. The maid described how Eleanor's birthday turned tragic when a piercing argument erupted between Lord Fallon and a stranger. The conversation was muffled, but the final cry before silence pierced the household's ears. A man's scream, followed by a thud. Sound effect. A sharp thud echoes, hauntingly timed. The maid claimed that ever since that night, Eleanor's laugh transformed into sobs heard in the attic. While the Fallons claimed Eleanor wandered off, villagers suspected the stranger, possibly attempting extortion. But why would Eleanor's spirit attach itself to a lullaby? Beneath Dr. Lyle's flashlight, she uncovered evidence revealing why. Camera pans over torn manuscript pages covered in faded ink. Among Eleanor's belongings was a sheet of music, written entirely in her hand. The last few measures of the lullaby carried an annotation, "To bring the heart back home." The melody, it appeared, wasn't from Eleanor herself, but something the Fallon family acquired from a downtrodden traveling gypsy who shared its supposed mystical ties to harmony and connection. Eleanor's fascination drew her to it, but past midnight, the notes apparently beckoned the veil between the living and spirit world. A harmonious conduit, easier conceptualized than faced eventually. It merged the moment her footsteps failed storytelling. A sequence revealing faces of head-shaking detectives. Hollow alternatives lie inexperienced towards breaking dawn. Eternal haunted calls, rip, stiff, higher edges, troubled expressions. Over years, spells surpassed enough. Ethereal orders bounced spirits. Prisoner, serenading old eternal singing lasting feathery flick recalls adventure viewers captivated till delirium humbled lightly. Melody history onward.